ready.
The big bad builders. Welcome, bienvenue. Welcome once again to another property live stream. This one's called Cladding Matters. Not solely about cladding, more about building safety, more about property safety, and health and safety throughout. And today we have with us Hamish McClare, as per usual, of Search Convey, Steve Day of buildingsafetyscheme.org. Very pleased to see in our guest corner Florentina Bunga of CDM of Health and Safety and Building Safety. So she should know what the hell she's talking about. And to start us off, as per usual, Hamish McClare.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to a slightly different time today, so we could accommodate Florentina. And I think all of you will appreciate why it was well worth changing our time today. We do have some illustrious guests on a fairly frequent basis, and today is no exception to that. We have been speaking over the last few weeks for very good reason, because this is a hot topic. It's an important topic which is being discussed by a number of people, and it's also being worked sort of within certain auspices within the sort of governmental framework of the House of Lords and the House of Parliament as well. Now, we've spoken about it with actually sort of an element of enthusiasm about how damaging it is, which seems a bit odd to me, but we do get sort of ourselves quite excited about it for good purpose. And I think when we listen to Florentina, what she has to, you'll actually understand more seriously why this is a danger. With the situation being that we well know that where remediation is being carried out on buildings, and people have interpreted the PAS 9980 standard as being minimal, and they've actually sort of decided to apply aspects of it which they thought were important, so they could keep the costs down. Unfortunately, from the side of insurance, the insurance people have decided this is not a safe measure. The mortgage people have decided it's not a safe measure. And strangely, some of the fire people are deciding now it's not such a strange measure. And somehow or other, we have got the non-experts in the government sort of process wanting to make this particular standard, which isn't a standard in actual fact, but wanting to make it law. Now, that is a danger, because it does leave people in a very dangerous position, both from a physical perspective and from a financial perspective as well.
Thank you. Welcome to the stage, Steve. It seems to me it's not so much the tail wagging the dog as someone else's tail wagging someone else's dog. And it's wonderful that we actually finally have another health and safety expert on today. But can you tell me from your perspective, please, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, just thank you, Florentina, for coming on. Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm one of the residents in a building with 16 stories, and PAS is allowing them to leave highly combustible XPS panels on our single-story escape stair going right up, and it's packed full of XPS, which is Euro Class E, the second most highly combustible material. And 2 fire risk assessment external wall assessors have said the XPS panels shouldn't come on, or it should come off. But the one Barrett chose is the one that said, "Oh yeah, keep the panels on." And then we looked at this new guidance, because I'm working in the House of Lords with the Earl of Lytton and Gideon Amos in the Commons, and this new standard is discouraging investigation into unlawful construction. Actually says that in the standard. It basically says if you can't find a proportionate way of fixing a building safety risk, then mark it as tolerable. Say it's all fixed. And yeah, the insurers love it, because the ABI tried to put an amendment down, to basically say, yeah, you need to take into account in the post-Grenfell environment. of the fact that there's huge amounts of evidence of building defects all across the country, and we always bang on about them, but the developer contracts are saying 77% of blocks of flats by Taylor Wimpey have got life endangering critical defects, 35% for Barratt, 43% and 69% for a few others, and we've listed and talked about that on multiple cladding matters. But effectively, PAS 9980, which is a highly subjective approach, which is being rejected by the insurers, which the standard itself says, yeah, you should just ignore sort of ways, risks, and discourages building safety defects that are illegal to be investigated. It's being rejected by the insurers, and hopefully, we'll hear from Florentina, it might be starting to be rejected or at least challenged by the fire industry. So I will hand you back, Gareth, and let's hear from our guest.
Florentina, welcome to the show. When people in the building industry use the word tolerable and with relating to risk of life endangerment, i.e. death, it just worries me. How many human lives actually is tolerable? 1, 30, 100?
From every angle, the answer is very simple, I think, for any decent human being. But the tolerability, which is the most consequential concept of the whole document,
yes,
it is the least clearly defined. There is no bright line that says at this point these materials must come off the building. That means that the same wall buildup can result in a tolerable retain with mitigation finding from one assessor and a remediate recommendation from another, as Steve has just said. So both can be PAS compliant, but that, if PAS 9980 becomes legislation, that is not what should happen. Legislation cannot permit two contradictory or two polar opposite outcomes for the same problem.
I mean, in my mind, legislation should be laser focused. It either is or it isn't. It's like being pregnant. You can't be a little bit pregnant. You either are or you aren't. In the same way, you can't be safe or mostly safe or almost safe. Certainly, as far as people who are willing, or in many cases unwilling, to ensure these locations, such as Royal Artillery Quays, often they'll turn their nose up at it because, frankly, it's still, even with PAS 9980 completely adhered to, it's still too unsafe for them. On top of that, because of the extra remediation costs and everything, now people like Steve are being charged extra costs through the wazoo.
There is a shift in mindset that is absolutely worrying, and everything starts from top down. A hazard-focused system asks, why does this dangerous condition remain? A tolerability-focused system, when it becomes the legal default, starts asking, can a credible argument be assembled for leaving it in place? And after Grenfell, we absolutely cannot afford that shift, especially after the Grenfell Phase 2 report was issued, especially after government have accepted all recommendations. Going in on the PAS 9980 without having structural reviews of something that was never written to be law, was written to be a technical tool. Tools can be used by each assessor as they see fit in different ways. It's a tool. You use a pen for writing multiple tasks, multiple types of letters. It's a tool that allows you to do different things. It should never be translated into legislation without structural alterations or structural amendments around critical aspects like the tolerability, the Grenfell Phase 2 alignment gap, the competency gap, which has never is never defined within the document. So if these are not addressed, these critical aspects, then it basically we're translating a technical guidance into defective legislation.
And would it put lives at risk, Florentina? Would it put lives at risk?
Absolutely.
If it becomes law in its current form?
Absolutely. And it is not, it is my professional opinion that is reflected by many industry other experts. I'm not singular in making this assessment, because again, a technical tool, assessment tool, never written to be even a guidance to implement regulation, never is not guidance. It's a tool. It's an assessment tool, not guidance, definitely not legislation. It needs to have critical amendments and changes so that this practical assessment tool can be incorporated in future legislation. Yes, absorption into good regulation, but not like for like from assessment tool to regulation without those changes. No.
Because as it stands, PAS 1980, it's just too grey and too fuzzy around the edges for it to be used as anything more than just a general direction pointer.
Exactly.
You have a fan already, David Jones Jazz Music. Well, I assume that's not the capacity with which he is writing in. States that Florentina explains the issues perfectly. Steve, your feedback.
Well, let's just say if a member of the fire engineering community and the other players that are also saying that Florentina mentions in the industry that this guidance could put your life at risk, could put innocent people's lives at risk without amendments, why on earth is our government trying to put this into law? What is their motivation?
They've obviously read the word tolerability and they've taken it to heart. That's what it is.
Oh, no, what we've got is the government have put up £5.1 billion worth of public funding, and that 5.1 billion has got to cover all the remediations under the scope of the Building Safety Fund, right? But they're also responsible for how much money needs to go into each remediation by setting the PAS 9980 remediation stand. But the problem they've got is you can get a remediation order and you can get around PAS 9980 and you can say, I want a building safety risk under the Building Safety Act definition. And as we've seen in case law, they're taking a low risk approach in the first tier tribunals and rejecting the PAS standard. And we've covered quite a damning judgment from the first tier tribunal on PAS. So, we can see why the government want to stop that ability to go via the courts to override PAS by making it law. And there's also a danger, and it'd be interesting to see what your view is on this, Florentina, but if we're going to put PAS 9980 into law, is there a risk then that building regulation compliance could also then prospectively for new buildings, could this then be leaked into, okay, yes, you've illegally constructed the building, you put the wrong fire breaks on, or you've missed the internal compartmentation, you've missed a few ablative bats. Could they then take a proportionate approach using PAS 9980 for new buildings potentially? Is there a risk that we go to subjective assessments for dealing with unlawful construction? I don't know what your view is on that.
Well, I'm going to put that to you, Florentina, but also I've got a comment for you to look at shortly. So if you'd answer that, and then I'm going to throw this comment at you via one of our listeners, James Allen. But you please do go ahead. Can you respond to Steve?
Well, it opens the Pandora box almost.
Yeah.
Certainly it does. I hope that there won't be a move into legislating it without, as I said, fixing the critical aspects of it, which is related to competence that needs to be defined clearly within the document, the removal triggers, the mandatory treatment of evidential uncertainty. So where a conservative default a conservative default where construction information is incomplete, hidden defects are probable, or test data is weak. That needs to be addressed as well. And we also have this integration of the Grenfell phase 2 alignment, which we accepted as a country, the recommendations. The government have accepted it. Translating this into law without structural modification will go against that acceptance, but it's also in polar opposite of the current building regulations, where we have the approved documents, which are the bare minimum standards.
Yes.
In building safety. We have those minimum standards, and we're saying that not even those minimum standards we cannot uphold, and we cannot build not even to meet those minimal standards. I find it a little bit, I don't know. We're saying something today and we're contradicting ourselves tomorrow type of scenario.
Yeah, well, it seems to me it comes from the logic by the Three Little Pigs. We've gotten to the House of Straw so far. Right, now, this is a comment from James. Past 1990, but we'll put lives at risk. Risk assessing is only as good as the competence of the individual doing the assessment, a point you made earlier. And can they still do a good job when under pressure? It's a good question. And he's got an amendment to that, which he's just written, that she agrees with everything you're saying. So if you could go back to that one. And then what I'd like to do after that, Steve, if we could refer to the article that Florentina wrote recently and some images you sent me. So Florentina, could you respond to James's comment?
Yes. So exactly. There's a competence gap. And the Stevens Day experience and the resident experience angle needs to be considered. PAS 9980 uses the word desirability in relation to qualifications. So desirable qualifications, we cannot go after these criteria because it does not create a mandatory and an independently verified competence threshold. The government's own 2025 response to Grenfell phase 2 signals mandatory UCAS accredited certification. So PAS 9980 does not capture this aspect. So a resident leaving behind a compostable wall system has no way of knowing whether the person who signed off their through met any mandatory standards, because the PAS 9980 does not guarantee that. It's just desirable qualifications. And the same type of building, the same type of wall could be assessed by two people with two different backgrounds, and both conclusion would sit within the PAS framework. Well, that's nonsensical. That it defies the logic of it goes against the logic to have such a situation. That is my position and my professional opinion on the fact that competence gap needs to be closed if there is a need and a desire to translate or to transfer the good elements from the PAS 9980 into future law.
Okay.
Gareth, if you want to just show just a little brief image on the article. So I think the top one, just to show viewers that there's a, Florentina's done a nice article on this. This is part of your conclusion, Florentina.
Okay, well, let me drop that first of all and bring out the actual beginning of the article.
I think, yeah,
let me do that. But so, what is this article about, Florentina? Would you explain the inception of this article, what its focus is, while I do that?
Yes, the article has come out, as I said, from a series that I've planned to do for quite some time, that scrutinizes existing guidance and puts out, different perspective or the most common topics and common takes. in relation to different guidance. And I think that PAS 9980 is quite famous in triggering a lot of conversations and a lot of viewpoints. Those that are, that do support the contents of PAS 9980 are absolutely looking this through the lens of those that say, I'm experienced and I've practically done that. And I say that it is possible to do a good job using the PAS 9980. And I've never disputed that. I think I'm not disputing that it used with by the right assessor that has the right qualifications as issued in the Grenfell Phase 2 report requirements, as the government has accepted that those qualification and competencies need to be, it is a good tool that can lead to practical assessments, and that makes sense to both residents and also to those that manage assets. But it needs to close the gap that around all these issues that have been talked over and over around tolerability, what's tolerable, because this is the highest risk point within the PAS 9980 tolerability.
Let me bring up your conclusion here. Can you just quickly just round this off? And then I'm going to pass back to Hamish to close down for today. Steve's had to rush off to a work meeting. Apologies, but it is one of those things. And I've got a feedback from James Allen as well. So can you just quickly just clarify this conclusion of yours?
Right. So in the article, the conclusion is that the fire safety law should not organize professional opinion. It should protect the public and should give clear instruction on what needs to happen, who needs to do what, and what happens when things go wrong. It should. It's not just a question around the accuracy of a technical document. It's the fact that the United Kingdom, England, the government have accepted recommendations to ensure that another Grenfell does not happen. So I think that is what we should be working towards. Fire safety law is critical safety law that should not leave room for interpretation or ambiguity.
It should be absolutely black and white, should it not? And look,
exactly.
So here's the last comment from James. There is clear evidence with PAS 9980 that are going straight to managing the risk rather than elimination. Hierarchy of controls teaches us how to deal with risk.
Yeah. Hierarchy of controls. I mean, really, why do we as people, as a nation, want to retain in our homes flammable, combustible materials that we know that increase the risk to life safety in the event of a fire? There are other aspects of a building that are critical to people's safety: structural integrity, all aspects related to a building being able to breathe that can lead to, occupational health hazards like mold, for example. There are many other aspects within a building that are critical to human health or to human safety. But fire safety and fires, feeling that you're safe within your own home, even in the eventuality of fires around your own unit, or if there is a fire within your own home, you can safely get out because you will not be trapped, and you will not, also that fire will be contained. We can never, whereas a few years ago you had quite a long time to evacuate. These, I think now, recent studies have shown that the time a person has to evacuate their own home in the event of fire due to radiation, due to fire spread internally through furnishings and fittings, is somewhere in the region of 6 seconds or something like that.
I heard that too.
So imagine 6 seconds where we have some plans in place that are good, and where management of fire safety is adequately done. Where that isn't done, what do you have? A second?
Well, I was going to say, of those 7 seconds, 5 of them are spent working out what you're going to do next. And then you've only actually got 2 actionable seconds, for which time I'm afraid in practice it's all over. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us today, Florentina. It's been an education. Hamish, would you care to take us home?
Well, I do appreciate those comments by Florentina. It puts so many aspects of what we've been speaking about over the last few weeks into total perspective. And having an expert on such as Florentina, we do hope you'll come back and speak to us again on that same subject, because the input's tremendous, and I'm sure a lot of people have learned much from what you said. It sort of reminds me, there's nothing I can add to that, having such an expert before us. But I'd make a sort of comparison in a way to what people sometimes do. They've got their they've got their car, and it's a family car, and they want to keep that car safe. There's an MOT test, but very often what some people will actually do, they will get a pre-MOT test. They will send it in there and say, hey, look, is there anything that I need to be looking at to sort this out? And that, in fact, is the kind of standard which comes to me is exactly what this particular, what the terminology behind PAS 9980 is about. Let us view. And then basically what happens, you go away, you sort out that vehicle, you make sure that it's going to be safe for your family. You then put it forward for your MOT test, and the job, because you've actually done everything, the job is actually sort of done. You could even get that same garage to do it, but you know the quality of the standard because you looked at it beforehand and then it was finalized. And this is basically somebody's saying, we have an idea, let us look at this, let us view the property given these particular conditions, and what do we have to do to make it actually safe? And PAS 9980 doesn't actually give that factual information that something like a pre-MOT test can do. But I'll leave it there because the information, I don't think we can add to that. It's been a great sort of...
It's been education, Florentina. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
And to those of you watching, I realize some of you are finding it confusing. The mention of lithium batteries, you're quite right. A lot of fires do start from lithium batteries. We're discussing a certain standard in the UK, 9980, which is potentially about to be enshrined into law. Unfortunately, that standard is so loose and woolly written that it would give license to people to effectively take the mick and not actually produce new houses or remediate old houses to a standard that's worthwhile and would prevent loss of life. And that is what we're discussing today. Do come back again next week. We do the same bun fight every week. Cladding Matters usually starts at 1. Today we start at 2 because dear Florentina wasn't available. Normally has a couple of other actors on board as well. We would welcome you back. We have property shows throughout the week. We have property shows. I'm afraid Hamish had to leave early. Property shows starting on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But until next time, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please try and look after your mental health. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll polish you the moon, but their word always fails.